Questions?
Coach, you talked about back during the college football playoff, the very specific and structured way you went about having roster management but keeping that separate from the players. Yeah, back during the winter window, you talked about how you had a structured way of going about winter portal window and keeping it separate from game planning, practice, stuff like that. So with the spring one getting set to open tomorrow, how are you doing that?
Yeah, that was different because we were in negotiations with guys and things like that. This is more just, hey, no surprises. Let's communicate, with each other. So it's more that.
James, if I could follow up, what input have coaches had on these windows? Any at all? Or are you just hit with them? And what input would you like to have with coaches in general like that?
Yeah, I think from my board meetings with the AFCA and what most coaches across the country are speaking on, I want to be careful not speaking for all coaches, but I think a good majority of them would like one window. I think that's in everybody's best interest. The players know who's on the roster. The coaches know who's on the roster, even if you made it after spring ball, and then went to more of a even maybe got rid of spring football and went to like a summer OTAs or just, did it then. I think there needs to be one window. Right now, there's no rules. You could have 50 guys go in the portal at this time of year, and it's a problem. There's also protection already for if there's a coaching change and things like that we've seen. Right now, there's just no rules, and I don't really think it's in anybody's best interest.
James, what happened to Tennessee where they parted ways with the quarterback? Talking about sport in general, are you concerned about the possibility of alienating fans?
Well, I'm focused on Penn State. I can't speak on what's happening in another state, in another conference. I'm concerned about what's going on here at Penn State, and for the most part, I've been very pleased with how our players and coaches have handled it. We still are working very hard to make sure that this is a transformational experience. And it's interesting that's a two-way street for players and coaches. So I can just speak on kind of how we're operating, and we're not trying to operate like that. And for the most part, our players haven't either.
James, back to the timing of the spring portal window. If I remember correctly, you said the meetings post spring ball about where guys stood and everything on the depth chart and how they were on the program. How does this impact the timing of that? Do you have those now, or are you having those kind of conversations before the end of spring ball because the window is going to be open?
Yeah, once again, it's really kind of a no surprises discussion. And what I mean by that, if the players have any issues or concerns, we want them to come in and talk to us. We've talked already to the team about how we're handling the 105. That was addressed before the first window. That was addressed before this window, so everybody is on the same page. The other thing, as you guys know, I meet with the players a lot, and there needs to be a communication two-way street. So right now, we're not having meetings obviously during spring ball, but there needs to be communication.
James, as Phil Trautwein tries to put together this offensive line plan, what's the immediate domino effect from JB moving on from the program?
Yeah, really not a whole lot of changes for us. Not a whole lot of changes for us.
Want to follow on that. You've spoken pretty highly of Cooper Cousins in the past. Now, what's the jump been like to year two in this offseason?
Yeah, he's done a really nice job. Burke's doing a really nice job. TJ's doing a really nice job. There's a lot of competition there. There's a lot of competition at those positions. Trout's done a really good job of recruiting and developing guys, so we have depth. That creates some of that as well, right? It's all of that. But there'll be really good competition with Cooper being one of those guys that's heavily involved in.
James, what have you seen so far from Drew Schultz this spring?
what do you expect from him in the fall?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. You know, he's a veteran guy. He's played a ton of football since his freshman year. Are you guys leaving? You leaving? I'd like to say bye. Sorry, guys. He's played a ton of football since his freshman year. He just continues to get better. He's super mature. He's a team-first guy. I think he takes a ton of pride in Penn State. And he's been a leader, really, not only for the offensive line, but for the offensive unit and for our team. I think he's got a chance to have a really, really good year for us. And I think he's got a long-term bright future. So I think a lot of our guys, and I think he's a good example of it, they understand the value of being at Penn State. They understand the value of competing against these guys every single day at practice and then the league we play in. So I think he's a really, really good example of a young man that's maximized his Penn State experience.
James, you mentioned Alex Birchmeyer there at the guard position. Where is he year 3 on his progress report and his development view within your program?
Yeah, I think he's one of these guys, and everybody's journey is different. You guys hear me talk about that a lot. You know, the light has gone on for him. We've seen a huge improvement for him at the end of last fall, winter workouts, and then this spring as well. Obviously, a guy that we've always thought very, very highly of. And everybody's process is different. The game is starting to slow down for him. He's got a really good feel of what we're asking him to do, and we see flashes of some really good stuff. So like all these guys, it's about consistency, but he's flashing some really good stuff right now.
James, since the portal, I think it's only 2018-ish, you guys haven't taken a scholarship quarterback in the portal window. One of maybe the only power program that hasn't done that. What does that kind of say about your program's approach to that position from a recruiting and culture standpoint?
Well, I think a couple things. Number one, we're a developmental program across the board. We believe in that. I also think early on we kind of had to be that way. But I think it also is kind of ingrained in who we are and our DNA. I think we're very upfront and transparent with people. And I think we've done a good job of developing that position so the next guy up has had an opportunity to compete and win the starting job and things like that. For the most part, that's gone pretty well. We're not opposed to doing it if we have to, but I'm a big believer when you can promote from within. You know what you have, you know what you're getting, and although the portal sometimes seems sexy, you don't always know what you're getting until they show up on campus. So I think so far it's been good to us.
James, Max Granville's the guy that a lot of people are excited about. Wasn't here last spring and now coming into his first full season. What were the coaching staff expectations for him coming into spring practice, and how did he start moving simple?
Yeah, he was a guy that flashed as a true freshman. As you guys know, we went back and forth on whether we were going to burn his shirt or not. He's gotten bigger and stronger. He's put on really good weight. It's really important to him. Works extremely hard at it. When he first got here in the fall, he flashed mainly as a pass rusher. Now he's got the size to be physical in the run game as well. So he's going to be a guy that we think is going to factor in for us this year and be part of that competition.
Hey James, what would you say is maybe a big difference for this wide receiver group as compared to years in the past, most recently? And do you like the direction they're trending in going into next season?
Yeah, I think year 2, within the scheme, I think Andy got a better personnel of who we have across the offensive board, not just at wide receiver. Marcus now been here for a number of years. Mark Dupuis helping out there as well. So I think Drew's got a big part in that as well. What we're able to do in the off season this summer is going to be really important. We need some of these young guys that have been in the program, kind of like we talked about a quarterback, to take the next step, and we think they will. I think the 2 transfer portal guys have come in here and increased the competition across the board for different reasons and in different ways. Hudson obviously has played at this level and been productive, and that has showed up. Very mature guy, very physical player, tremendous ball skills. And Ross hasn't been at this level, so his improvement since he's been on campus with all the resources has been dramatic. But he's also showed that he can make big plays against this level of competition. So I think it's been really good for the room. Nobody's promised anything, but it's raised the level of competition in the room. But we still need some of those guys that who are already on the roster to take the next step. And we've seen flashes of that this spring.
What's your impact in Jim Knowles having? It seems like that's been a strong foundation so far in the points. Is that something you're seeing here more of?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we have more tools and more answers to solve some problems. Right? There's going to be a couple players a year that are a problem. There's going to be a couple games a year that are a problem. And you got to have enough answers and tools in your tool belt to deal with them. And Jim's been doing it a long time. He's very clear about how he wants to do it. And again, I think the time that we spent on what can stay the same and what needs to change and the terminology and all those things has been helpful. But I've been very pleased with how our defense has handled things. And not only that, with Andy, he's going against a ton of different formations and motions, as you guys know, every single day at practice. And I think that's going to put us way ahead, because if you don't do a whole lot of that and then you get it during the season, it could be a pain in the neck. So I think that's been a real positive for both sides of the ball, just how we install and in a lot of ways how we service each other.
James, what was the process and the conversations like with King Mack when he entered the portal and you guys knew you kind of want him getting back on campus?
Yeah, he'd been talking to the guys on our team all year long, still close with those guys. I think he saw a bunch of the guys that he came in with in year two take a big step, which he would have been a part of that if he was here. And I think, kind of like I talked about before, about not knowing what you're going to get out of the portal as coaches in terms of the players you're bringing in, or players going to other programs that don't know the culture and what it's going to be like. So for King, I think very early on it was a no-brainer for us, because I think he would have played a significant amount for us last year. And I think for King, why take unnecessary risk? And he knows us, we know him, so it didn't take very long. Once he entered the portal, I had a conversation with him. He was talking to our guys. Dex got on the phone with him. We were able to kind of get it done pretty quickly.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, James.